Olivia's face is sweet and relaxed, beautiful, stunning, breathtaking. Me, terrified. Oh my god. Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. A is back talking about books. You don't understand how many videos, how many hours of footage I have of me doing an update to my last video. And I scratched all of it and decided to just start completely new because this second book, to Little Stranger, had me utterly speechless. And maybe I will keep some of the clips up here, but I was going to do similarly to what I did with the first book, right? Sort of a reading vlog, talk about the plot, my reactions to it, explaining it, having dialogue of what happens in it. But as I continued reading, I just kept getting more and more pissed off, I guess. And I just decided to scratch all of that and all of my reactions because it started becoming so repetitive in what I was saying that I decided to just sit down, collect my thoughts, and go over it one by one. If I have some of those live reaction videos, I will put that up here. But other than that, let's just get into it. So this video is going to be a part 2 to my last video. First video was Little Stranger. My part 2, it is talking about the second book called Little Liar. I am not done with the book. I am halfway through the book and we're gonna start from the beginning. This book really did not need to be made. So if you watch my part 1, please go watch it if you want to. But there are a lot of trigger warnings, okay, for SA, for drugging, dubious consent, non-consensual consent. So if you have not heard about Little Liar before, or this sequel, it is a duology. It is a siblings to lovers relationship. It is a dark romance book. It follows 2 adopted siblings as they grow up into adulthood and fall in love with each other. That is the story of the first book. So in the first book, 8 years later, he goes to jail for attempted murder of his adopted dad. And he gets out of jail and starts stalking his sister / lover, and then it becomes a stalker romance. So that is the plot to book 1. If you are interested in it, you can go watch that video. Like I said, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warnings. There's so many trigger warnings. I will link them down below in the description as well for those warnings. If you cannot handle any scenes, conversations related to those things, please, please, please take care of yourself. Do not watch this video. Do not watch that video. And if you are under 18, get off right now. This video is not for you, please. The first book was 200 pages. And so much happens in that first book. Then you get to book 2. This book is twice as long. It is 430 pages, I believe. Honest to God, what else do you have to say? What could you possibly say about this relationship that makes you want to write a book twice as long? I'll give you the answer. Literally nothing. Because half of this book is a retelling of book 1, but instead of being in Olivia, the female lead of the book, instead of being in her POV, it is in Malachi, the male love interest's POV. And it is a retelling of their love story, except with some included scenes that were truly, truly, truly unnecessary. And I will get into why. When I first read it, the last book, it was kind of romantic in like a taboo way. And I was like, okay, I could get behind it, whatever, right? I like to try to enjoy myself while reading. It turned from a taboo romance, reading it in Malachi's POV with those included scenes, it recontextualized this entire book and story into a horror. The way that I see this book, being halfway through with it, I don't consider this a dark romance book. And I've talked about it before on my channel, how dark romance, we've taken things too far, things are not romantic, ideas of consent. Why are we romanticizing sexual? Literally, why are we romanticizing these things? It's one thing to be a dark romance, but the things that we are talking about are not even romantic. And if the things that we are reading were written by a man, as women, we'd see it as scary, but they're technically written by women. So apparently that's dark romance now. There is nothing romantic about the things that happen in this book anymore. Things that are happening truly have just pissed me off by now, and it takes a lot to piss me off. I think that reading, that any sort of media art is subjective, and that's why even with 5-star reads, 5-star books for me, I will always talk about the flaws in it. because every single book has flaws. I will always talk about the pros and the cons to every single book. Even if I thought the book was perfect, I know that not everybody is going to think that book is perfect. Art is not for everybody. And for this, I thought the same thing. I was like, I'm gonna see the pros and see the cons. For example, I thought a pro was that way that he's like utterly obsessed with her and is pining for her, and the tension is immaculate. The way that it's written is so easy to read. Like, these are all pros for me, but now the cons have truly overshadowed it. Now it is a horror book, and it is like campy. A lot of the things that happen in this book is just so absurd. What are we even talking about anymore? Things like this are just not realistic, even for a dark romance. Why are we having arranged marriages, selling off your daughter's virginity in the 21st century? But not only that, it's not like, okay, these are like elites, they're billionaires, and this is what billionaires do. Their adopted parents, they're lawyers. They're like upper middle class. What do you mean your mom is trying to sell you off into an arranged marriage and this is a tradition in the family? Maybe I don't understand rich people, but I really do not understand that. Like, it just does not make sense to me. And so much of the dialogue, honestly, at first, right, in my first video, it was hilarious. It was so funny because it was just like, nobody talks like this, nobody says things like this, like my big brother. Very camp and very funny and satirical, to be honest. And like, is this a satire on dark romance? Me, I'm reading this like how a lot of people would read Lolita, right? Like an unreliable narrator, the view of the villain, and you are reading this book in the context of the villain. Yeah, let's just get into the plot. I will explain what I mean by the like Lolita-esque retelling. If you know anything about Lolita and like the way that it's written, I have personally never read a Lolita, okay, but I only know about the discourse of it, and discourse around it is that the way that you read Lolita is a reflection upon the reader. So you self-reflect, it makes you think about how you view things, because in Lolita you are in the perspective of an unreliable narrator. You are in the perspective of, I believe his name is Humbert Humbert. He symbolizes a child. You are in the headspace of a pedophile. There's a lot of glamorization and glorification of Lolita, which is not even the main girl's name in the book. Her name is like Dolores or something. Glorification of this child who was a victim of pedophilia. Glorifying her, sexualizing her. There's so many forms of media that sexualize her, when in reality, that is not what the book was supposed to be. You were supposed to feel disgusted by him. You're supposed to feel disgusted by the things that he was saying. But because of the flowery writing, because it was written so beautifully, it's a reflection upon you as a reader and how you view things. And for me, that is how I'm reading this. Maybe I'm thinking way too hard about this book, but like, that is the only way that, like, this is my coping mechanism, okay? This is the way that I can cope with the things that I am reading, because I really think that the things in this book, if you have those certain niches, like there are certain websites that you can go to for those things, right? This is not even a taboo romance anymore. It is not a romance, okay? It is a horror. The way that I'm reading it, it's like I feel like I'm in the headspace of the villain, and he is glamorizing this entire scene where he literally, while she is unconscious and is her, but it was so horrific. And I'm like, wait, are we really considering this a dark romance book? I don't understand how anybody could find this romantic, because it's so different than the first book. Specific scene that I'm talking about happens in the very beginning. It is while they are growing up. It is the retelling of the first book, which was honestly so unnecessary, but it's in Malachi's POV instead. There is an entire scene that Olivia, to this day, her being 20-something, 8 years later, whatever, does not know about. She does not know that this happened to her in her childhood because she was, and because it happened while she was unconscious. She did not consent to that at all. She did not write in her diary at this point that she wanted this to happen. He did it on his own volition. It shocked me to my core, and I was like, how is this in a book and considered a smut scene? Makes absolutely no sense, and it was really, really horrific. That's why I had to refilm this like 10 times, because at first I made this video as entertainment, as humorous, because the things in it were so absurd and so camp. And then it took the darkest turn ever, and it turned so serious. It's just something I cannot joke about. Like, our generation jokes about everything. Like, we need to talk about things seriously, and that was serious. I started laughing because it was so traumatic. You don't know how to cope, so you just have, like, you just laugh. Like, that is how I felt. Let's just get into the plot, okay? Like, I've just been rambling and ranting, and like, you probably like, girl, what the f are you talking about? We start off in the beginning. right? Malachi, it is in Malachi's POV. He is 5 years old. They're at the airport. He is getting picked up by his new family, which is where he meets Olivia from the first time. And they also do backstory on Malachi and his abuse, why he became mute, because in this entire story, I need a refresher on the first book, he is mute, he doesn't speak, they speak in sign language with each other. This was the first thing that I thought was so funny. This boy is 5 years old. 5 years old, okay? 5 fingers, 1 hand, 5. 5-year-olds go to kindergarten. Let me put into perspective, I've worked with kids. I know pretty much the trajectory of when they start reading, how things work like that. Boy is 5 years old. Why is nobody talking about this? This boy is literally a genius. This little boy is a genius because biological dad left his mom and him and ran away and then died. And he wrote this note to Malachi, and Malachi reads this when he is 5 years old. It says, Malachi, I'm sorry I can't be there for you anymore, son. I hope you can one day forgive me for leaving. You see, daddy's head isn't in a nice place and he's not good for you and your mother. Your new 8-legged friend will protect you, so he gives him a spider, just like I know you'll protect him. I suggest the name Rex or Spiky. Don't be afraid of him. After all, you're an arachnophile, just like me. Love, Daddy. He read all of that. He understood what the word arachnophile was. He even understood how to say hopefully anymore. Literally most of the words that you read in this letter, a 5-year-old could not read. I look at a lot of kindergarten homework. You know what kindergarten homework is? Tracing your A's and B's. What sound does it say? Writing your name over and over again so you memorize how to write your name. 5-year-olds don't know how to read, don't know what arachnophile is. And you're telling me he literally said, although mommy thinks I'm dumb, my teacher always tells me how great I am with words. So even though the handwriting is messy, I can read the note. He is 5. What do you mean? Like, this is what I mean by saying that it's camp and it's so absurd, because it makes absolutely no sense. This is just the tip of the iceberg, okay? This is how we start out. Now let's keep going. He talks about his past life and then he gets picked up in the airport. For his backstory, he gets the Christian Grey treatment. Mom was abused and he saw his biological mom die. He was in diapers, he was neglected a lot, and he was hungry a lot of the time. His whole thing is, I wish somebody would choose me. Nobody ever chooses me, no one ever works for me. He's mute, nobody wants to learn how to communicate with him. And for him, Olivia, when he first met her, was this ball of sunshine, this light. She said immediately, I want to learn how to communicate with you, I want to learn sign language. She didn't look at him like he was a weirdo or strange, and he held on to that feeling. He fell in love with her since childhood. I think that part of the story is actually really cute, and I really like that. Then it became an obsession for him, started falling in love with his adopted sister, etc., etc. Was adopted by many other families before he went to Olivia's family. And nobody wanted to keep him, and all he wanted to be was chosen, and somebody finally chose him. That's really sweet. He says, I like her, she doesn't make me feel uncomfortable, she's so happy compared to everybody else, and she's happy to meet me. I tilt my head, this is when they first meet. Her smile drops. You don't like my dress? Without thinking, because I want her to like me too, I lift my hands and sign, please don't be afraid of me. I was reading this, I was like, okay. Like, the romance is romancing. And then we get to when they're older, turns 11, turns 12, 13, 15, 19, whatever. He says, I'm attracted to my sister. I must be, right? There's no way in hell I can't be attracted to her. To me, she's a masterpiece. We aren't related by blood. We have different backgrounds. We were just 2 kids adopted by the same family. I'd happily give up a mother and a father to have even a day of calling Olivia mine. This is taboo if you're into forbidden romance aspect of it, the siblings, all power to you. It's not something that I'm into, but if you are into it, it kind of does that part of it and explaining that part of it in a romantic way. Some of the hidden scenes in here is going over the night where her mom forced her to give up her virginity, sold her virginity off to this guy that she potentially could have been arranged married to, and the aftermath of that, she's crying in her room and Malachi doesn't know what just happened. He thinks that she just got her period because she has blood, or he gives her like a warm towel and it's just really soothing for her, has been there for her and does things that are really sweet for her in the beginning, okay? And I really like that. And we travel. This is when I started to become like, oh, okay, things are getting a little bit too gray. Like, the line is here. We started here. We're above the line, okay, forbidden romance. The line starts getting here. And I'm like, okay, we're at the line. There's a night where he can't control himself. The tension is tensioning, right? And he's like, I can't control it. She's unconscious and starts to touch her. I'm like, the line is lining. Like, there's a line that we're about to cross, but we're on the cusp of it, okay? And then the cameras come in, and she doesn't know about the cameras in her room. He has cameras in her room. Where'd he buy those cameras? I don't know. Watches her every night. Line is down here now. Okay, we've crossed the line. This is when I was like, this is a horror book, because he hides under her bed while she is on top of her bed doing that to herself. And he's watching the video under her bed. The line, we started here, and now we're here. We're below the line now. And then this is the added scene, his POV that we didn't get in Olivia's POV. Really, this is a horror book. What are we doing? This is so creepy, so scary. To me, this is so serious. Like, we cannot be romanticizing these things, people. Like, we cannot do it. We cannot be making jokes about these things, like entertainment purposes, whatever, right? But these are like things that people actually go through. Never been triggered before, but this really, really triggered me because they're explaining this entire scene as if it's a smut scene. So he says, in their childhood, okay? Like, she didn't write things in her diary saying that she wanted this to happen. She didn't know that she wanted this fantasy. In their childhood, he is 19, she is 18. He takes the pills from their mom's cabinet, drinks her, she drinks it, unconscious, and there's an entire scene that is played out where he digitally unclothes her, touches her body, and to this day, she does not know that that happened. How are you supposed to read this as romantic in the slightest? I started reading this book as if this girl is in a situation where her entire life she's been surrounded by people. Her dad is just there. Like, I don't know anything about her dad. Her mom is abusive, selling her off, putting her in arranged marriage. Her boyfriend slash brother is also really abusive to her. And the guy she's got to be arranged to is also abusive. Like, this is so freaking scary. She'll never know. I could her. Is she unconscious enough that she'd never know that I was inside of her? What are we doing? What are we doing? Why is this in a published book considered dark romance? People are talking about this book on TikTok. Like, truly, you guys, dark romance is one thing. This is, the line was here. Now we are like the floor. You need to drill a hole into the floor to how far we've crossed the line. I was speechless. I was just trying to like fathom how you could read this quote unquote smut scene, and they say it in graphic detail about how he digitally raped her and drugged her while she was unconscious. She did not think that this was a kink that she liked till later in her life. She did not write this, that this is something that she wanted and talked about. And I talked about in my first video about how at least they were very communicative about their kinks. They were very open about the things they wanted. It was the closest dark romance book that I had ever seen to consensual non-consent, because they actually discussed the things that they liked and disliked. They discussed how she wanted to be chased in the woods, how she wanted things to happen to her while she was unconscious. In her journal, not even like he just did that and that was already bad in itself. I was trying to find some sort of positive out of it. This was straight up, where is the romance in this? Like, where is the respect given to her as a person in this? The dark romances that I like in any romance, dark whatever it may be, dark rom-com, contemporary drama. Romance is when two people connect with each other, respect each other, and find a love for each other. Not when they abuse you, which is literally what is happening here. Not when they don't treat you like a normal person with feelings, do things because you can't control yourself, doing it to a person that you quote unquote love. I don't understand how they so graphically wrote this scene like it was supposed to be romantic, like the reader was supposed to get off on that. Like, that was the point, a turning point in reading this book for me. I was like, oh my god, this ruined the entire first book. Retelling in Malachi's POV, the fact that he did this and she still doesn't know to this day, it recontextualized everything that happened in the first book. Already did things to her while she was unconscious and she has no idea, and he goes, I sign. Now officially the biggest liar in her life. I'll touch her. I'll do a lot more than touch her. She'll love it too. Barf. Without even talking to her, without even discussing things with her, how do you know that she is going to like the things that you are talking about? Are you a mind reader? You said, oh, she was unconscious and then she got, and that was why she liked whatever was happening to her while she was unconscious. If you have any inkling towards liking this book at all, please log off. This is for me, like, this is me being a hater, and I hate being a hater, but I could not help it with this. Like, I try to find something, but this is hater react. So I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry if you had any inkling towards liking this. This is just not the video for you, but I respect your opinions and I respect where you thought about the book, okay? But seriously, like, I could not get behind it, okay? But if she's asleep, I could kiss her and she couldn't tell me no. It might stop my obsession, stop the craving for my little sister, scratch the itch to stick my in someone I grew up with as a sibling. Stop. The reason why he does all of these things is because he's insecure. And I will get into that when we get to present day. He is so insecure that she will not love him, that she will say no, that she will not accept him, that he decides to just do it anyway while she's unconscious. How is that romantic? Like, literally tell me how that's romantic, please. Please. You know what's romantic? Wanting someone to love you, wanting someone to choose you, and like you choose each other. That's cute. That was all fine and dandy in the first book. Talking about your kings, talking about the things that you want. She's a little freak. We love a little freak. Oh, can someone match my freak? He matched her freak, and that was really romantic, and they actually talked about it. This is him being a freak, but he doesn't give a shit about whatever she thinks, and doesn't confess and come clean about the things that are happening to her, that he is doing to her. So after he her, he says, the door creaks open and I leave my hiding spot, moving to the side of her bed before slowly lowering to my knees. I'm nervous. I've never been so nervous in my life because I can do what I want, but I have no idea where to start. Olivia's face is sweet and relaxed, beautiful, stunning, breathtaking. Me, terrified. She's at my mercy. I can do whatever I want to her. The fact that she isn't waking up and yelling at me has me smirking and circling again. Circling you know what again. Learning the feel, the physiology of her most private part. Just repeating it, I was so shocked while reading this. This was like the added part that we got. Why did you add this to the book? It was so unnecessary. It was way worse. There's nothing romantic about this. And I'm literally reading this scene in his POV, talking about how he's getting on this. That is why I'm saying it's similar to Lolita. That is why I'm saying that this is in the villain's POV, talking about these things that are horrific, but talking about it in a pleasurable sense. However you take this book as a reflection upon the reader, that is what I will say, okay? Wake up, little sister, I say in my head. Wake up and see what your big brother is doing to you. Feel how much you want him with his fingers buried inside your wrote on this. I'm sick to my stomach because I literally was. I've never been triggered about these things in my life, but I was so triggered by this. I was like, you cannot be serious. Like, this cannot be serious. I won't push my inside, even as my pre-covered head slips against her entrance. I want Olivia to be aware of who's inside her when we lose our virginity together. How kind, how thoughtful of you to want her to be actually conscious when you guys lose your together. Like, bless your kind heart for thinking about that. What? It's not debatable. This is not consensual non-consent. This is not dubious consent. This is just straight up drugging. And this was the turning point in the book for me where I was like, this is a horror book story about Olivia who is stuck with a man who's obsessed with her, stuck in this cycle of abusive people in her life. And Olivia is just lucky that she likes this guy. If he wasn't hot, if she wasn't hot, you know how much we just let things slide because the guy is quote unquote hot? No. There has to be a line, there has to be moral gray area, whatever. Like, you could read dark romance. The characters can have moral ambiguity. For me personally, this is past my morals. You like it, all power to you. Okay, for me, I cannot do it. It is against my morals, and I had to continue reading this book as a horror book because of that. Just for me to cope with it, how it could be published as a dark romance and how it could be romantic in any sense of the word. It was way past my morals at this point. I said this in the first video, how I wasn't the same ever since I finished that book. This made it 10 times worse. I guess in a way I am inexperienced. I've only f***ed around with her body a few times since the first time I licked her. I've licked her, had my tongue inside her, and nearly tongue f***ed her ass. All while she was unconscious. There is the romance, literally. And the way that he tries to turn all of this and into a positive is utterly insane to me. He's like, I want you to teach me how to kiss. I want you to teach me how to be with other girls because I've never been with other girls before. And he says, I don't need to be taught a single thing considering I've done stuff to her while she's been unaware. The excuse worked though, so my inner Malachi is gloating at the other voices that tried to talk him out of it. She, all throughout the first book, was like, wow, how did you know how to do these things? Like, you don't need to be taught anything. Like, you're so good already. And he said he's only good because he did it with her while she didn't know. Oh, so it's a positive then. It's a positive that you did all that then. Okay, that makes sense. That is basically all the things that happened in part 1. That is all the unnecessary stuff, the exact same stuff that happened in the first book, but just retold in his POV. This part of the book did not need to be written at all. You could have taken 200 pages out of the book. So now I'm halfway through the book, and now we are in the second part where the plot finally moves forward and we're not in his POV anymore. And it is 8 years later. It is 2 weeks after the wedding that she ran away from. He thought it was a happily ever after. She finally chose him after he stalked her and she was about to get married and she said, I don't want to get married, runs away from the wedding, her adopted brother, and they go chase each other in the woods and you think they live happily ever after. 2 weeks later, after their happily ever after, they have been stuck in their cabin in the woods or their farm or whatever it is for 2 weeks, have not left the house. Miss Girl is not even going to work. This is where I figured out that he is so insecure. She's like, oh, Malachi, I have to go to work. He's like, no, don't go to work. Like, don't leave me. He thinks that if she leaves the house, she is gonna leave him. The most insecure man I have ever read. Worse than simp. This is worse than obsessive. This is an ick at this point. Like, he's just being insecure. He's literally doing these things to her unconscious because he's insecure. He's stalking her because he's insecure. He's not letting her leave the house, joking about how he will burn down her workplace and then kidnap her and put her in chains in the basement because he's insecure, because he doesn't want her to leave. He was giving the ick. This is present day 2 weeks after the wedding. We're going to get married, have kids if she really wanted them. You guys are the last people who should be having kids. Please do not have kids. You need to work on yourselves and your insecurity and whatever it is that you may be going through before you could ever think about bringing a child into the world. Then we get to the whole arranged marriage thing, and I think this is going to be the conflict that they're going to have for this part of the book. The family that she was supposed to get married to, her mom is pissed off at her. They did a whole retcon because in the first book, her mom was totally fine with her running away to see her brother and accepted her. She gave her a nod at the wedding like, oh yeah, you can go. And then her mom goes, I had a lapse in judgment and forgot the implications of you breaking the agreement. Plot is not even plotting. Her mom is pissed. The family that she was supposed to get married to is pissed. And why is she having an arranged marriage? You guys are literally upper middle. Maybe I don't know anything about the rich, right? Like, I literally said that. I don't know anything about the rich. But what do you mean it's a tradition in your family to marry off? You guys are not billionaires. You guys are lawyers. What kind of power moves are you trying to make? Trying to marry rich? I really don't understand it. Malachi's like, I don't want you to leave. Please don't leave the house. Please. You're gonna leave me. Dude, just let her go to work. Let her go to work. He's like, I need to keep her. I need to find ways to keep her. I'll lock her in the basement if she doesn't stay. Relax, okay? Well, she finally leaves the house and she tells Malachi, we've grown up. I'm with you. I'm gonna be with you forever. But actually ask me out on a date. Want to be a normal couple. And he's like, we've already passed all that. I don't want to ask you out on a date. I'm like, your girlfriend slash sister is asking you to ask her out on a date and you don't even want to date her? Like, you're so boring. He just wants to stay home and put her in chains and just f her all the time. Dude, how is this guy romantic in the slightest? Once she goes to work, she works with her mom, sees her mom, and her get into an argument. And you know what, Olivia? She ate with this line. The mom goes, after everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? I gave you a life, Olivia. Putting myself to my feet, I glare at her. You took me from one home and put me in another. I said, ooh. She ate with that because truly everybody in Olivia's life is horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I feel the most sorry for her, even though she's barely a character herself. She's YN. She is just stuck. Her boyfriend's stalking her, obsessed with her, is really, really insecure and towards her and doesn't treat her like a human. Her and everything like that. Doing things to her without her permission while she's unconscious. She's in an arranged marriage, working with her mom, and is controlling her and forcing her life around her. Like, I need there to be a third book with a revenge plot against the entire family, including Malachi. I really need that. This girl has been through it all. She's just stuck in this controlling nature of a situation. If she didn't like Malachi, do you understand how scary everything in this book would be. If she did not think like, oh, Malachi's kind of cute. You know how scary it would be for somebody that you live with to have cameras in your room, for them to be hiding under your bed while you are doing those things to yourself, while you are being intimate with yourself? You and do those things while you are unconscious. You know how scary that is? And you have no idea to this day? Romance where? Romance where? I let out a laugh. Every time you took away one of my choices, I needed him and he was always there for me. You pushed me closer to him. You're the reason we're together. Her mom is like, you need to go marry that other guy right now. You need to stop being with Malachi. Even though 2 weeks ago she was totally fine with her getting with Malachi, but we retcon that. Honestly, Olivia is speaking straight facts here. All of the circumstances that happened to her life, maybe it did push her to find a place where she could feel vulnerable and that someone chose her at the same time. That part of it is actually really sweet and really romantic. They just didn't need to add all of those unnecessary dark romance. Like, it is not romantic at all. He's actually really insecure. He goes, she's not fully mine. Not yet. I can feel it. She's biding her time before she can leave again. I understand there is a precedent and where she doesn't choose you, whatever. I'm like, this guy is so insecure. It's literally pissing me off. But there are some parts where I really liked his inner monologue, his own psychology. He's going to a speech pathologist, trying to learn how to talk again because he's been mute for decades. Said, what the wrong. I had a family who actually cared for me. They didn't toss me like the other families. They kept me regardless of my issues. If I hadn't nearly killed my dad, would I still be considered their son? Did I choose my obsession with my sister over a loving family? I made them the way they are. Dad hates me because of me. Mom hates me because of me. We're broken because of me. Olivia is going to leave me because of me. Ooh. I really like that he actually thought about these things, because a lot of the book, it kind of sounded like he was being a little ungrateful for this family who's that these are things that he would naturally think about. And then now where I am at the book is he's at the speech pathologist. He might be diagnosed with non-catatonic schizophrenic syndrome. A lot of the things that he's feeling, he might have some sort of mental health issues. I briefly discussed it in the comment section of my last video. I do not know much about mental illnesses, how they affect people, if this book has bad or good portrayals of mental illness. I couldn't really speak up on that. He is diagnosed with certain mental illnesses, and if you guys know if the portrayals of this is good or bad, please let me know. Also, I think what I wanted to talk about with this is, like, why do so many dark romances have to have a mental illness associated with it? To me, he is seen as a villainous character. I don't know if it's just me, if I'm so wrong for thinking this. I find it kind of irksome. Why do we have to associate villainous people or villainous acts to some sort of mental illness? People are murderers to be murderers. People do horrible things to do horrible things. I think it creates a stigma against mental disorders. People with these mental disorders are going to inherently do bad things, which I do not think is true. Really don't think it's necessary to include he's diagnosed with these things, because I really think that he could just be a regular schmegular person, but he's a freak. Too many times people with certain mental illnesses are portrayed in media as these darker, villainous, like they're gonna do something horrible, which I do not think is true. And it's creating this idea that people with mental illnesses are gonna be harmful, or gonna harm you. If I'm totally off the mark with that, it's okay and it's fine that they're portraying him with mental illnesses, having non-catatonic schizophrenic syndrome. If I'm totally off the mark with that, please let me know. Having his character, having these diagnoses are unnecessary, because it's not like they're portraying these diagnoses in a character that is doing good. I don't know. You guys can let me know about that. That is where I left off on the book. I feel like I didn't take the first part that seriously. Wild scenarios and situations, like super campy, absurd situations happened. Because it was absurd and campy, I was laughing. I cannot believe he's doing these things. Then I read this book and I thought it was gonna be the same. And as I kept reading, it wasn't something that you can laugh at anymore. Something that I really take seriously, and I have taken seriously in my past videos before about dark romance. Dark romance is not even romantic anymore, and what kind of person would that make me to laugh at a scenario like this? Like, it's not even funny anymore. This is not even, it's past camp. The first book was camp. the first book was absurd. It's past that, okay? I will update by the time I finish the book. This is what I mean when I say that this book is absurd. Olivia, at this point of the book, is at home. She's crying because her mom is still trying to force her to get married to that other guy. She feels like her mom is controlling her life. She can't do anything. She can't make any choices. She goes to her apartment as opposed to the house that she's been stuck with Malachi in for 2 weeks and is sobbing her eyes out there. Malachi looks on the cameras that he has and sees that she is at her apartment, goes to see her, sees that she's sobbing, and to calm her down, he goes, "I'm not hard. This isn't about me. This is me trying to calm down my little sister. Open," I force out as I tighten my grip on her hair and rest her head in my lap, using my other hand to press the tip of my to her lips. "Put me in your mouth." Tears are still streaming down her face, but she's not in hysterics anymore. Her tongue is wet against my pressing it nice and warm as she heavily breathes through her nose, just sitting in her mouth. It's somewhat calming her. Okay, therapy, I guess. This book goes from absurdly comical to absolutely horrific, not joke about that, to sad and melodramatic, to absurdly comical again. What do you mean you put your in her mouth because that was gonna calm her down? I guess you guys are freaky like that. That calms you down. I don't know. This book is the most utterly confusing thing I've ever read. Like, the tone is all over the place. I'm 67% of the way through. I think I'm just gonna skim it. I tried. I don't think I can do it. It's just not the book for me. Everything I said in this video, if you're into it, this is the book for you. It's not the book for me, and I don't want to be a hater, okay? So everything that I said in the first video and in this video, it's more of the same. Whatever could possibly happen within the next 40% of the book, I've seen it all at this point. It's too horrific for me to read this as if it's a romance book. I'm desensitized to it at this point. I don't want to promote a type of book like this. It's supposed to be like a smutty book, and they use text to comfort each other, to communicate with each other. I think that within itself could be a positive if you want to see it that way. There's just too much of the book that I could not stand for, that I cannot joke about, that I cannot fathom anybody thinking that it was romantic in the slightest. It's one thing to like niches, it's one thing to like certain taboos, to like a darker romance, to have romance characters be morally gray. It's another thing to straight up write a book that feels like it's promoting things that we should never ever be promoting. I want to say now, like, if I ever laugh at something that is in this book or makes something feel sort of comical, it is not because I think that the situation is funny at all. It's like my coping mechanism to the shock that I am feeling. Just don't think that this book is right for me. I don't think it would be right for most people, and I would hope that people don't think that they would ever want a relationship that is remotely close to the one that is in this. I would not wish it upon anybody. This is where the weird thing about the line. You can read dark romances and just have it be fantasy that somebody may have, then you can have that. But I feel like this is to a point where it's like romanticizing these things. Someone commented on one of my past YouTube videos before, and I would 100% agree with this, that dark romance is more palatable, especially if the setting of the dark romance is in a fantasy world where the rules of the world are different, like the werewolf thing and like being sold off into a marriage. I would probably be more into those than something like this. I do not find anything in here romantic. The smut scenes, if you were to read this book and want it to be like, oh, you want to read smut, and I'm putting it in quotation marks because I do not even consider it smut. I consider it straight up scenes. They're not even written that well. I don't even know if I would want to be associated with me reading something like this. But my digital footprint is so large already. Yeah, I just feel really gross reading this. Like, I'm so sorry. It's not for me. Malachi at this point in the book kills somebody because Olivia got kidnapped. The guy's family that she was supposed to marry had somebody kidnap her because he is part of a very powerful Russian family. She denied wanting to marry him. She gets kidnapped. Malachi checks her location because he has cameras everywhere and immediately goes to save her in the van that she got kidnapped in. So I guess the cameras were good for something. Goes into the van, puts a screwdriver through the driver's neck and saves Olivia. Brings the body with them, covered in blood, to their parents. Dad is actually very supportive. and says, okay, I'll help you hide the body. He helps them. Okay, supportive dad. Their dad and Malachi take the body with them to their farm in the middle of nowhere. They go to the backyard and Malachi says, Olivia is about to find out a huge secret I've kept from her, that I have bodies buried in the backyard. Literally. Who else have you killed? Who else is there? What was the reason for you killing other people? You just got out of prison 6 months ago. Who do you have to kill that pissed you off so much that you're just killing bodies left and right? He says, why am I so nervous? Dad being here doesn't help. If I dig in the right place, they might not notice the other body bags. So it's enough bodies to the point where that might not be enough space for them to put the new body. Olivia goes inside to shower. It's just the dad and Malachi out in the backyard digging this hole for this dead body. My shovel hit something hard and I swear when I noticed the body, I forgot to bag. It's decomposed, been hidden in the dirt for about 2 months now, so it's mostly bone. I pause and stare. My lip is flattening as I lift my gaze to my father. He's staring at me, at his killer son, the murderer, the abusive asshole, yet he isn't being judgmental or giving me shit. We won't tell Olivia, but this is the last one. I roll my jaw. Who the f*** is he to tell me who to kill and not to kill? If someone gets in my way, they deserve a shallow grave in my yard. Who got in your way in the 6 months that you've been out of jail? But honestly, that scene was actually funny. It was meant to be funny, and it actually was funny. There are moments in this book that are good, and I like that they are aware of some, not all, some of the things that are morally wrong in this book. Staring at his killer son, the murderer, the asshole. Like, at least you're aware. The bar is so freaking low that I'm 89% of the way done with the book. We are at the point of the book where Malachi, there is a shootout. Now he is in the hospital. He is recovering. And then Olivia gets kidnapped by whatever his name is. Honestly, I could care less. That guy she's supposed to marry. His family kidnaps her, locks her in their mansion in the room, and she's just kind of stuck there. They put a tracker in her arm, and we come to find out that the guy that she is supposed to marry doesn't even like her. He is also in this situation that he is forced into, and I kind of love that. We're getting a little bit more depth in his character because he was just kind of there for most of the story. We don't really know much about him, but now we get an inkling that this guy doesn't want to marry Olivia. He's forced into it also by their family, and he's actually probably in love with Abigail, who is Olivia's friend. And he will do anything to try to get Olivia to escape for Abigail. I think that's kind of what they're hinting at, and I kind of love it. It's one of the only times where I felt like in this entire series, they made a semblance of character for the side characters. Everybody else in the book besides Malachi and Olivia are irrelevant, but at this point, we are 89% of the way through the book on book 2 of a 2-book series. It's a little bit too late. But now Malachi got shot. He's in the hospital because there was a shootout when they were kidnapping Olivia. And now he is waking up in the hospital and I just feel nothing. The stakes are so all over the place all of the time to the point where nothing matters anymore. He wakes up from his coma. You know how interesting this would be in any other story? Like, oh my god, there's a shootout? Oh my god, he's in a coma. Oh my god, he's waking up in a coma. But just add it to the top of the list of all these other things that have happened. The plot is Malachi is out of the hospital, meets up with, his name is Xander, I figured out. That's the guy that Olivia's arranged marriage to. Also Malachi's dad, and the three of them have a meeting to try to plan an escape for Olivia. But I think Adrix is Xander's brother. They want to kill their dad. Their dad says, if you don't sleep with Olivia, I'm gonna sleep with her, because they want to impregnate her, because they want an heir that is not, what do they call it? He wants an heir who isn't a up like me and my brother. He told Xander they'd pretend the child was his. We are at the 90% mark of the book, And we have a new villain. Oh my god, congratulations. We have a new villain at the 90% mark of this finale to a book. Why are we having a new villain, introducing a new villain at this point? It is Daddy Dearest of Xander, who is also a new character within himself. To me, everybody is villain vibes. There are no redeeming qualities at all, to the point where I literally could care less about what's happening. 94% of the way through this book, and it became funny again. They are on a race for this girl's life, okay? They just picked her up. She is on the way out. They're disabling the tracker. They are driving away. The driver of the car is witnessing all of this. And this is the first time that Malachi and Olivia have seen each other in a month. After she got kidnapped, okay? And she goes, I need you. Please let me have you. They're in the car with another person. They are in the fight of their life. The adrenaline is rushing and they're on the way to a safe house in the car saying, Malachi, I need you. He says, we don't have much time. This needs to be quick. Imagine pulling up at the safe house with our father waiting and my balls deep inside my sister. You cannot tell me this is serious. We share sloppy yet desperate kisses. The guy who was in the car with them, witnessing all of this, literally doing it in the car on the way to the safe house. A tear slips down her cheek. You've always been enough, Malachi. I want every moment with you. Huh? Huh? I hear Base say. Base is the guy who was in the car with them. Then he swears under his breath and knocks the mirror to block any reflection. Fucking hell, really? It's a race for your life and you're deep inside your sister? Yes, I breathe against her lips, but I want to be deeper. You cannot be serious. This has to be satire. This has to be satire. This has to be satire. And I really truly think that the author was trying to make it funny. Unironically, it's funny. Like, you know what kind of energy this is giving? It's giving Tamlin energy in the first book of A Court of Thorns and Roses, if you've ever read that, where it is fight for the lives of all of the people in the world at that time, you know? And they were under the mountain in Amaranth's court, and he gets a single moment alone with the love of his life, Feyre. And he decides to start making out with her. What happened to, hi, hello, my name is, faster, harder, Olivia, drop your ass down on me, harder. Then Base, the other guy in the car, after they're done, says, Tobes, help me. The siblings are f***ing in the back seat and I'm certain the mute just spoke. You know how I said that these are the last two people who should be having kids? I'm at the epilogue. Guess what happens? 3 years later, they're married. Of course, in any smut book, the epilogue has to start with smut scene. Of course, of course. I honestly skimmed it. Could care less. They have a child. Who knows, they could be great parents, but like, I literally said so many times these are the last people who should be having kids. Finally, I finished the book and really don't know if this video is gonna be even a video. I don't know what's gonna go on, honestly. It might be the most unorganized video ever. Let's just do some concluding thoughts. I truly think this book was very unnecessary. Nothing actually happened. Even if we took away the first half of the book, which was a retelling of their childhood to adulthood and their childhood romance, even if we took that out, I don't even think the second half was that great either. Basically, the entire plot of the story, continuing from the end of the first book to the end of the story, Malachi and Olivia are together, she goes to work, she gets kidnapped, then they save her. And then they have a child in the epilogue. And that is it. And everything in between are smut scenes, and they don't connect as people, they don't connect as characters, because that's what you're supposed to get in a romance. You're supposed to connect, and they're supposed to learn more about each other, and they're supposed to fall in love. I will say, I could have easily not read this, and instead I'm out here complaining on the internet about a book I don't like. Sue me. I know I am at fault for this. I know I could have just easily not read it. I don't have to be out here complaining on the internet, but here we are. This is what I'm doing. I'm sorry you're watching it. I understand that, but I guess this is what I do. That is part of my channel, reviewing books, whatever it may be. I've learned my lesson. I know now. This book isn't for me. I don't think stalker romances are for me, because I don't think I've ever enjoyed a stalker romance yet. I have enjoyed dark romances. I've enjoyed mafia. I've enjoyed kidnapping romances, consensual non-consent romances, BDSM, like the list goes on. I don't think stalking romances are for me. If it's for you, I'm happy for you. I also think though, as readers of dark romance as a whole, we should be aware of what we're consuming. Be conscious of it, the things that we're promoting. For me and my morals, there was no justifying at all a lot of the things that happened, especially in the first half of the book. The unconscious, the unwanted acts. There is no ifs, ands, or buts in my eyes as to if that could be a moral gray area. I'm sorry, that is the person that I am. Somebody and they don't know about it and doing things to them without them knowing about it, without talking about it before, is something that you would want. You can go argue with the wall, okay? I'm sorry, ifs, ands, or buts, no. That is not dark romance, that is, and we should be aware of what that is and what we are reading. God forbid we even promote something remotely related to this and call it romance, okay? It is one thing to call it horror, it is one thing to call it another genre, but calling it a dark romance, I'm sorry, no. The fact that we promote this as things that women would love and that women read. Like, we're promoting this as if women read this and this is what we would want. You have to think of it like this. Like, if this was written by a man, how would we feel about that? Is this truly written in the female gaze? Overall, as a whole, it was pretty entertaining. The serious parts of it, I take very seriously, and I want to make that clear. But on the other hand, I think this book had a lot of moments that were funny. I think were meant to be funny. Logically and logistically, this is a 1-star book for me. As a dark romance, 1 star. As like a comedic, satire, camp, absurdist, postmodern book, I honestly give it a 5 out of 5. If you are not going to read this as a romance book, if you're going to read it as an absurdist satire, it did well in doing that because of just how unrealistic so much of this was, how many funny moments there were, ironically and unironically, the way that it kind of reflects who you are as a reader and your own morals. I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but I really think that if you read this as some sort of postmodern literature with an unreliable narrator and it's a satire about dark romance, black comedy, it does well if you're reading it as if it's that genre. Truly. I would give it a 5 out of 5 stars if that was the case. Those are kind of my concluding thoughts. I don't know if any of this video makes any sense. I don't know how long this video is. This video might be way too long and I might have repeated myself a million times. To be honest, I'm speechless. My digital footprint is a little bit too large at this point to be quoting the things in this book and to be even associated with the things that are happening here. I do not want to promote this book at all. If it's a dark romance, this is not romantic. Maybe I like soft dark romance. Maybe I don't like hardcore dark romance, but I truly think that we have lost the plot here when it comes to dark romance. Dark romance is not romantic. It is not romance. It is straight up horror. We have really lost the plot when it comes to what we're promoting. The way I found out about this book was the audio sound that was used on TikTok. We shouldn't be saying certain things are romantic, aka romanticizing those things, when it is such a serious subject, especially in this day and age, especially today, in the way that there have been so many high-profile cases, if you know what I'm talking about, where things like this happen to women. Multiple high-profile cases. And it is a reality for so many people. The way that we are romanticizing it just doesn't feel right, sit right with me. And maybe that means I'm triggered by it. Maybe I am triggered by it. Maybe I am triggered by hugging somebody and then them and then slapping the dark romance sticker on it. Like, maybe that's triggering for me. Maybe I learned that about myself today. I'm gonna be so strong about my opinion here. Maybe it should be triggering for you too. So let's think about those things. Anyway, thank you so much. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all so much. Thank you. Thank you. If you have any thoughts as to what I said, if you even are here till the end of this video, thank you so much. If you have any thoughts at all, I really want to hear them because I was just rambling, putting all of these different thoughts out there, but I don't know what to do with these thoughts. So I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. Would you agree that this is kind of a dark satirical comedy? Because I really believe that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. And the next one, spoiler alert, I don't think I'm doing dark romance next one. Okay. Anyways, bye. Love you.